You are sitting at your desk. It is late, maybe 11 p.m., maybe later. You have a bill you have been avoiding opening for 3 weeks. It is sitting right there. You can see it. And instead of opening it, you open YouTube. You scroll. You order something you did not plan to buy. You stay up until 1 a.m. doing nothing in particular. And tomorrow, you will make the same bad financial decision you made last week and the week before that. And you will tell yourself the same thing you always tell yourself. That you just need to be more disciplined. That you just need to try harder. That if you could just get your act together, things would change. I am here to tell you that story is wrong. Not partially wrong. Completely wrong. And the evidence comes from 2 of the most respected researchers in the world, working out of Harvard and Princeton, using data so clean and so consistent that it has been replicated in over 15 independent studies across 4 continents. Here is what they found. When you are financially stressed, your brain does not just feel worse, it actually works worse. The cognitive machinery you need to make good decisions, plan for the future, resist impulses, and solve problems quietly shuts down. Not because you are weak, not because you lack discipline, but because of something called the bandwidth tax. And once you understand how it works, you will never think about money, stress, or bad decisions the same way again. Let us start at the beginning. In 2013, 2 economists named Sendil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir published a book called Scarcity: Why Having Too Little Means So Much. Mullainathan was at Harvard, Shafir was at Princeton. Between them, they had spent decades studying how people think and decide under conditions of constraint, and what they discovered was not what anyone expected. The conventional story about financial struggle goes like this. People who are bad with money lack knowledge or discipline, or both. If you could just teach them better habits, show them how compound interest works, give them a budget template, they would eventually get it together. The problem, in this version of the story, is a skills gap, or a willpower gap, or a character gap. Mullainathan and Shafir demolished that story with a single concept. They called it cognitive bandwidth. Here is how to think about it. Your brain, at any given moment, has a finite amount of mental processing power available. This bandwidth is not unlimited. It is the resource you draw on when you are making a decision, solving a problem, resisting an impulse, or planning for the future. When your bandwidth is full, or nearly full, all of those things get harder. Your ability to think clearly about complex problems drops. Your ability to resist short-term temptations weakens. Your capacity to imagine the future, to think about next month or next year, shrinks dramatically. Now, here is the part that changes everything. Scarcity fills your bandwidth automatically. You do not choose it. You do not decide to let financial worry consume your mental space. It happens on its own. The moment you are dealing with not enough money, your brain locks onto that problem the way a smoke alarm locks onto smoke. It cannot stop. It cannot look away. The financial problem takes up space in your mind whether you are actively thinking about it or not. Researchers compared it to having a browser with too many tabs open. The other tabs, the ones you actually need, run slower. Some of them crash entirely. The consequences of this are staggering, and they are measurable. In one of the most striking experiments in the entire field, Mullainathan and Shafir tested a group of shoppers at a mall in New Jersey. They gave participants a hypothetical financial scenario and asked them to think through it. Then, they measured their performance on a series of cognitive tests. The participants who were prompted to think about a large financial problem performed significantly worse on those tests than the participants who were prompted to think about a small one. Not slightly worse. Measurably, substantially worse. Then they did something even more revealing. They ran the same experiment in sugarcane farming communities in rural India at different points in the harvest cycle. The same farmers, the same people, were tested both before harvest, when money was extremely tight, and after harvest, when money had just come in. Before harvest, when they were financially stressed, their cognitive scores dropped by an amount equivalent to 10 to 13 IQ points. After harvest, when financial pressure was relieved, those same people scored significantly higher. Same genetics, same education, same life experience. Different financial context, dramatically different cognitive performance. Let that land for a moment. Being poor or being financially stressed temporarily reduces your effective IQ by 13 points. That is the equivalent of going an entire night without sleep. That is more cognitive impairment than moderate alcohol intoxication has been shown to produce in some studies. And it happens automatically to everyone, regardless of how smart you normally are. This is not a story about poor people. This is a story about a cognitive mechanism that activates in every human brain when financial resources feel scarce. It does not matter whether you earn $30,000 a year or $300,000. If you feel financial pressure, if you are anxious about a bill or a debt or a shortfall, the bandwidth tax is being charged. Your effective cognitive capacity is reduced, and you are making decisions from inside that reduced capacity without knowing it. Now, here is where it becomes a personal finance problem of the highest order. The decisions most affected by bandwidth reduction are precisely the decisions that determine your financial future. Impulse control is one of the first things to go. When your bandwidth is under the bandwidth tax, your brain becomes significantly worse at delaying gratification. The part of your prefrontal cortex responsible for saying no to the immediate reward and yes to the future benefit gets slower and weaker. This is why financially stressed people are more likely to make impulsive purchases. This is why people in financial trouble sometimes make decisions that look, from the outside, completely irrational. They are not being irrational. They are operating with dramatically reduced self-regulation capacity caused by the very stress they are trying to escape from. Planning for the future is also devastated. When you are under financial stress, your brain tunnels. Mullainathan and Shafir named this phenomenon tunneling, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Your attention narrows to the immediate scarcity problem. The tunnel shows you only what is directly in front of you. The due bill, the current debt, the overdraft happening this week. Everything outside the tunnel goes dark, including the things that would actually help you long term, including the retirement account you have not set up, including the investment you have been meaning to make, including the insurance you have been putting off because the monthly premium feels painful right now, even though the absence of it could be catastrophic later. All of that lives outside the tunnel. And while you are financially stressed, you literally cannot see it. This tunneling effect produces what researchers call the bandwidth tax in its most financially destructive form, because the things you neglect while you're tunneling tend to compound. The bills you do not open attract late fees. The late fees attract interest. The interest damages your credit score. The damaged credit score increases the interest rate on your next loan. The higher interest rate means you pay more every month, which puts more financial pressure on you, which narrows the tunnel further, which makes it even harder to deal with the compounding damage. You do not fall behind because you are irresponsible. You fall behind because the cognitive resources you need to keep up have been captured by the stress of already being behind. Researchers put a specific number on one piece of this cycle. People under financial stress pay an estimated $740 more in annual interest costs compared to their non-stressed counterparts, largely because of missed payment windows and suboptimal borrowing decisions made inside the tunnel. $740 a year, just from attention that got consumed by stress before it could reach the decision that mattered. That is money going directly from your pocket into the financial system's pocket, extracted by a cognitive mechanism, not a character flaw. Here's something else almost nobody talks about. The bandwidth tax does not discriminate between the kind of financial thinking it taxes. When you are financially stressed, your brain does not protect your financial decision-making capacity while reducing everything else. It reduces everything together, including the specific mental resources you need most to deal with the financial problem. It is as if the cure for pneumonia made your immune system weaker. The very thing causing the capacity reduction is the thing the reduced capacity needs to solve. It is a closed loop, a trap, and it is not one you can simply willpower your way out of, because willpower itself is a bandwidth-dependent resource. When bandwidth is low, willpower is low. When willpower is low, the decisions that require willpower get worse. And when those decisions get worse, the financial stress increases. Mullennathan described this in an interview that stayed with me. He said, "The experience of poverty reduces anyone's bandwidth. It is not that people with less money have less mental capacity as individuals. It is that the experience of financial scarcity imposes a cognitive cost on whoever is experiencing it. Rich, poor, high IQ, average IQ. Put any person under genuine financial pressure and measure their cognitive performance. It will drop." Now let us zoom out and look at what this means for you. Most personal finance advice assumes a static, undamaged decision maker. It assumes someone who can clearly see all their options, calmly weigh the trade-offs, make the rational choice, and then execute it with discipline over time. Every budget template, every index fund explainer, every savings challenge assumes this. And for some people, in some circumstances, that assumption holds. But for a huge percentage of people, the people who most need financial guidance, the assumption is completely wrong. They are not choosing badly because they do not know better. They are choosing badly because the cognitive system they need to choose better is running at 13 IQ points below its normal capacity every single day because of the financial stress they are already under. The system is, in a very real sense, taxing the people who can least afford to be taxed. So what do you do with this? The first and most important thing is to understand what you are actually fighting. You are not fighting laziness. You are not fighting stupidity. You are not fighting some fundamental character defect. You are fighting a neurological mechanism that evolved to be extremely good at focusing attention on immediate threats, and that is now being triggered by financial pressure in ways that actively prevent you from resolving it. Understanding this does not solve the problem on its own, but it does two things that matter. It removes the shame that makes the problem worse, because shame is itself a bandwidth consumer, and it redirects your energy toward the actual leverage points, the places where intervening actually breaks the cycle, rather than toward trying harder at things your brain is neurologically blocked from doing well right now. The second thing to understand is that bandwidth is not fixed in the long term. The farmers in India scored 13 points lower before harvest than after. Same people, different financial context, different cognitive capacity. This means that anything you can do to reduce the immediate felt sense of financial uncertainty, even temporarily, has a measurable positive effect on the quality of your decision-making. It is not just about feeling better. It is about literally recovering cognitive capacity. Researchers found that giving people concrete plans, even small ones, a specific action scheduled for a specific time, reduces the intrusive mental activity around financial problems enough to free up meaningful bandwidth, not because the plan immediately solves the financial problem, but because the brain, having a plan attached to a threat, can release some of the attention it was devoting to the threat. The alarm does not need to keep ringing at full volume if there is already someone headed toward the smoke. The third thing, and this is the one that has the most long-term leverage, is to design your financial decisions so they do not require bandwidth to execute. The most effective financial behaviors, automatic savings contributions, automated bill payments, index funds that do not require ongoing active management, are also the ones that remove decision-making from the moment of stress. If the decision was made once, in a moment of relative calm, and then made automatic, the bandwidth tax cannot reach it. The automated savings transfer happens whether you are in a tunnel or not. The bill gets paid whether your attention is captured by something else or not. This is not a small insight. It is actually the most powerful piece of practical financial advice that behavioral economics has ever produced, and it comes directly from understanding the bandwidth tax. You cannot think your way to good financial behavior while under financial stress, but you can set up systems that behave well for you regardless of your current cognitive state. One more thing before we go. There is a version of this story that feels depressing. Financial stress reduces your capacity to fix the financial stress. The trap seems inescapable. But there is another version, and I think it is more accurate. This research is actually the most compassionate, most exonerating thing I have ever read about financial struggle. It says that the bad decisions were not weakness, they were not stupidity, they were not proof that you do not deserve financial stability. They were the predictable output of a human brain doing exactly what human brains do under conditions of scarcity, which is to narrow, tunnel, and allocate its remaining capacity to immediate survival at the expense of everything else. The people who made those decisions were not worse at managing money than people who never had to manage money under that kind of pressure. They were human, and their brain was running the algorithm it was built to run. The shame was never yours to carry. The trap was never a reflection of your character. And the way out is not harder. It is smarter.